paraprofessionals. Is there anybody, and Pat Sonia is here for Carol.
Okay.
Broussard, who had another commitment. Anybody else I missed?
For Matt Luca.
That's, yes, sir. Thank you very much.
That's Mount. I spoke to Jason Leonard last night. I meant to tell you that earlier. He said since he's not an administrator, he's not a part of the Federation of Teachers. I noticed he's missing when it says employee absent, members absent. I don't know if we could maybe get somebody else.
I thought he gave it up over there.
I don't know. That's what I thought too. I just saw his name.
We have 2 new LPAE members, and we've got paraprofessionals. Who is he representing?
I want to say, was he on Federation of Teachers? He said. We have another.
We have an Apple representative.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I randomly spoke to him last night.
Okay, I'll find out who the LFP rep should be. Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
There's a roll call sheet going around. If you haven't signed it, would you please sign it? And first item is approval of the agenda. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Butch, second. Liz. Any objection? Agenda's approved. Approval of the minutes that Mona distributed. Motion, Mr. Stansberry. Second.
Second.
Any objection to the minutes? If not, the minutes stand approved. Next on the agenda, report on contracts and services. This is Mona. We had asked her to report every meeting to let us know if there are any problems with any of our contractual services. So if there are, we can nip them in the bud. And we had none last month. Did we read this month?
No, we're doing well. I will say on the 26th, we met with EDI just to finalize some final administrative processes, and we worked out some billing of people who weren't on payroll and who are on leave and things like that. So there were some outstanding issues that we worked through. That all went well.
Okay. New business. Many emails about this. When Matt decided he couldn't come, he sent an email about proxies. And as chair, I got out the bylaws or the rules of governance and realized we have a significant conflict. Our rules of governance say we have to operate by Robert's rules, but it also provides for proxy voting, which is prohibited under Robert's rules. So as chair, I don't know whether we can have proxies or not have proxies, so I put it on the agenda first so we could make that decision. John had some comments, Butch had some comments. I got a couple of emails from folks. And I'll tell you my reasoning for wanting to do away with the proxy. First of all, there's not equity among all the employees that are represented. For example, it's very easy for Matt, and I'm not picking on Matt, to go to somebody in his office and say, can you take my place? It might be very different for somebody who's representing another group that doesn't see somebody every day to get somebody to take a place. We used to, back in the day, have problems getting a quorum. Some of us here remember those days. It is very problematic to me, if we're looking at what's good for all the employees, to have people voting who haven't heard from all the information. So that's why it's on the agenda one, because I need to know whether I cannot recognize proxies as they're voting today, or if I can. So with that said, anyone who's got comments? First, we need a motion on the floor one way or the other. So if somebody would make a motion about proxies, and we can have a second, then we can have a discussion.
I'll make a motion about that. In order to comply with Robert's Rules of Order, we need to eliminate sections 2, 4, and 7, and any mention of proxy voting, and replace section 7, paragraph 2 to read, if a member cannot attend a committee meeting, the member may ask someone from the same organization to attend the meeting in order to gather the information, ask questions, and participate in discussions. That substitute will not be considered a committee member for the voting purposes or for purposes of voting. If a member cannot find a substitute from his or her organization, she or he shall inform the chairperson or the director of risk management, who will document the absent as excused, and we've done that in the past. 2 consecutive unexcused absences may result in the committee's recommendation that the member be removed from the committee. And this section applies to organization representatives and at-large members alike.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
Yeah, I would second that.
Okay.
Do you have that written down? Because
Yes, I have it written down. Yeah, yeah. Shorthand won't even work right here.
So the motion is to do away with proxy voting, but to allow substitutes from the same organization or the same group to come to the meetings, gather information, participate in discussions. They just would not be counted as a voting member of the committee because they are not a voting member of the committee. Okay. Any other discussion?
And one of the things that I looked at, just within a week, we had 2 RFPs. The RFPs changed, right? You know, within a week. So things changed, and I've been on the committee for a long time. And from one meeting to the next, I've seen a total reversal of something we were doing, and we had implement things that we were going to do. But because of certain circumstances happening, we said, no, this is not good for the employees. And of course, we reversed that decision or that focus. And if that person coming in has gotten, you know, the information and not the new information, guess what? They may make the wrong decision for our employees. And so that's basically my reasoning for that.
Okay.
I think it's very logical.
Yes, ma'am.
I agree with that part because we've been here, we're discussing all this stuff, we pretty much know what's going on, and then I say, I can't make it, could you come? And they're totally clueless.
Yeah.
They have no idea what we're doing at all. And I agree
And
with
even
that.
if they aren't, even if you can explain it to them, things happen during the meeting. Like we all got an email at 3:30 this afternoon with what's going to happen with our health insurance.
Oh, well, I didn't even get that.
If you didn't check your email, no. Well, Lynn's here to make the presentation, but we got it by email this afternoon. So, any more discussion?
I'll say something. I'd like to keep proxy, I guess, an informed proxy, and I know some of you disagree with that, and maybe most of you disagree with that. But I really feel that, you know, if I'm not here, if there's a teacher not here, then no one is representing that organization, and I feel like that's the lesser of 2 evils if we have a proxy. I understand your point. Yeah,
Well,
very much.
In your situation, where you're at in the administrative part, you're fine. But if you're out there, let's say you're in maintenance, okay? Do you see your people every day? Maybe not. You come in early, you're gone, and all of a sudden you can't make it, then who are you going to get? Okay, because we're talking different levels, you know, when we talk about that. As a teacher, maybe you have a close confidant that you let know what's going on. But on the other hand, we also have, you know, and cooks, you know, the maintenance people. I mean, I don't know that they see each other every day. Bus drivers,
No.
you know, you see?
I didn't see an email today, I didn't stop.
So you see what I'm talking about? In your situation, I understand that, okay? But I think for the overall benefit of this group, okay, and let me tell you, I've been here for a lot of years. I think that we really need to not let it happen. Let them come in, let them get informed, but then as far as for voting, that's my personal opinion.
Any other comments? If not, let's have a vote. All those in favor of which
Well,
is
I have a
motion?
question. Should I vote?
You
at
should
this
vote
point? At this,
on this.
you know,
Yes,
as
sir.
this stands. Okay.
If this passes, you should not vote again. But if,
What?
if this, you understand?
He can go home.
I can vote one time. I got one shot.
Vote on this? If
One
it
shot, dude, you got it.
And we're not saying too that we're not precluding, like if you don't have to have a proxy, right? This isn't forcing us to have a proxy. You were saying like
No,
this
this,
bus driver
if
is-
you want somebody to, if you can get, no, here's the deal. If you can get somebody to come and listen and, you know, and go back and give the information, that's fine. But the thing, what we're doing here is that we're saying no voting because you're in a different situation because Matt has informed you, okay? But not necessarily other people in our, we go all over. I mean, we're talking from, you know, the paraprofessionals, paralegals, blah, 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 all the way around. And not everybody sees everybody.
Yeah, no, I
So you're in a different situation. If I was still teaching, I would be in a different situation because I had 2 people that I communicated with all the time, you know, so that they would be informed as to what was going on. But, you know, once again, I've been to meetings where we're going one way and all of a sudden we're going the other way. And I think that would be unfair to our employees.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I was thinking about it because I think it's administrative staff. I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
So I am that. So that's where it's, I was kind of confused because I'm kind of new to this thing, listening to emails.
Right.
And saying, look, I was thinking I could come and represent administrators still,
Right. You come to the last couple of meetings.
I did. I came to the last meeting,
Yeah.
and I've been on the email chain. So
Right.
But I don't know that we're saying even like if we did have a proxy, this as it stands right now doesn't force someone to have a proxy. As it stands right now, it's just saying if you think there's something that's important for your group, we think we should allow you to send a proxy.
That's the old way of doing it.
Yeah, that's current.
What we're saying is that we're going to cut that out.
You can send a substitute to gather the information, and I don't see, unless someone objects, I don't see why they can't participate in everything we do.
And even
They just would
discussion.
not be considered a voting member.
Yeah, you could even discuss. That would be fine. But it's just in the final vote, I think there's not enough information from the previous experiences or previous meetings that would justify, being able to vote, especially when things turn like they turn here.
Yeah.
Okay, all those in favor of getting rid of the proxy and supporting Butch's motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay. Motion passes. Next thing on the agenda is RFP for voluntary benefits. We all got an RFP, and then we had time to read that, and then we got another RFP. So I sent out an email asking people for comments, questions, suggestions. I got some back. Mona was kind enough to make a copy of the RFP for everybody because I figured it's been a long day and most of you wouldn't have it with you. So thank you, Mona, for doing that. You're welcome. If anybody has any questions or comments, we can do that now, or we can start with the suggestions and questions I have. Scott. Okay. Pass these around. I just, oops, printed.
Oh, that is.
The first one you're going to get is a suggestion for changes under 3 changes. So the first one is on page 5. Oh, the pages aren't numbered. That helps. It's on scope of services, administrative services. Page looks like this.
I didn't see.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
You don't have one?
Page looks like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, the suggestion was under scope of services, page 5, to eliminate 7 and 8 covered elsewhere. I must be on the wrong page.
Where else is it covered?
No, it must be on the next page.
Yeah, there's 7.
So number 7 is do your enrollers receive commission?
And 8 is your company owned in whole or part by an insurer that offers voluntary benefits.
So where is that covered elsewhere?
Don't know.
Because that's critical information.
If you look at number 26, it says, has the company administered COBRA before? So that's kind of redundant.
No, that's not redundant.
Why not COBRA administration, and have you administered COBRA before? Administration.
Wait, which are two the same? Okay, now I'm looking at 26. How many years? And where's the other one?
Well, when you look under administrative services, the second to last one is COBRA administration, so you're rating that twice?
Yeah, okay, we'll take it out
Okay.
of the
It's just
one in
redundant.
the
I mean,
box.
I'm not saying it's not important.
Yeah, I got it,
certainly
I got
is.
it. I didn't see it twice.
Which one do
Okay.
you want to take it out of?
Yeah.
Probably the box of
Okay.
scope of services. Well, actually,
I'm sorry, everyone.
Well, one is how many years, and one is do you offer it at all? So.
Well, you can combine the two. Do you
Okay.
offer it for how many years?
Okay,
I mean,
we'll
that's
do that.
Okay, under scope of services, 7 and 8. I don't know where that's covered elsewhere. Is that
Flexible spending.
flexible spending?
No, it's do your enrollers receive commissions? And is your company owned in whole or in part by an insurer that offers voluntary benefits?
I may have been sent the wrong numbers.
Okay.
Mona. Let's go to general qualifications,
Okay.
number 3. General qualifications is that same page. Number 3 is how many full-time employees does the company employ? Is that in the executive summary?
It could be, but they may not put it in there.
Well, you can require that it be in there.
We can,
Yeah, why don't we do that?
but we're not scoring it.
Well, that's another thing. That's from somebody else. They have a question about some of the things in the project description
Okay.
that should be scored and are not being scored.
Okay.
Under communications, number 17 is include a sample communication plan and samples of the communication material you will provide for employees. And 22 is can employees contact your company via email? Are both of those included elsewhere? In other words, are they being redundant? Do you require a sample communication plan elsewhere?
I might.
Communication support.
It's under communication
Booklets.
support, provides benefits booklets to employees for annual open enrollment
And
and
maintain the website.
and maintain the website. So, assuming that the booklet is the communication,
No, that's not the same thing.
what's the communication plan?
How do you get out the word about opening homes and the schedule?
So it's not a particular document,
Correct.
okay? And 22, can employees contact your company by email? My personal opinion is that's not worth any point. There's no company in the world you can't contact by email.
We'll take it out. I'll try to make
Try to make
scorable questions out of the stuff that we're working with.
Right.
before, so I'll take it out. That's
Okay, the second one I have, it deals with the selection process. The first RFP we got, I don't remember what day, I think it was Wednesday, had no selection process. I didn't. The second one we got did have a selection process. And the selection process, several people expressed concern about that process. So this is something that was sent to me, so I will send it out. Hey, do you know what these were? Okay, the selection process in the RFP is on page, not numbered,
section 11.0.
11.0. This is what the page looks like. And the selection process says it'll be awarded through a qualification-based selection process. All proposals will be reviewed by a panel whose members will be approved by the superintendent. The review panel will review and rank all proposals according to their scorecard that will be based on the evaluation criteria in section 13. The panel will select the highest ranked firm on the results of the evaluation criteria. The panel's recommendation will be made to the superintendent prior to being submitted to the board insurance company. That doesn't say anything about being presented prior to being presented to the employee insurance company. Committee. The panel may choose, not shall choose, to invite up to 3 of the highest ranked firms to make presentations to the Employee Insurance Advisory Committee and/or Board Insurance Committee. At such presentations, the panel will have the opportunity to clarify information, obtain a greater understanding of the qualifications. The panel will have an opportunity to reevaluate and adjust the initial scorecards. The superintendent will determine whether the panel's recommendation then proceeds to the Board Insurance Committee or directly to the full board. The full board, as they always do, has the ultimate and final approval.
Right.
So what was sent to me is what you just got that says the contract for the administration of voluntary benefits will be awarded through a qualification process. Oh, I hate to read to you because as a teacher, they used to drive us crazy, but because I don't have copies for everybody. All proposals will be reviewed by a panel consisting of 1 staff member, 1 member of the Board Insurance Committee, and 1 member of the Employee Advisory Insurance Committee. That way the staff's involved, the board is involved, and this committee can vote on 1 representative. The panel will review and rank all proposals according to the scorecard that will be based on the evaluation criteria in Section 13. The panel will give the names of the top 3 highest ranked firms to the Employee Insurance Committee. The Employee Advisory Insurance Committee members will review the recommendations and make its recommendation to the Board Insurance Committee. The Board Insurance Committee will review the proposals and make their recommendation to the full board. The full board will ultimately have a final approval of the awarding of the contract. Understand, whatever we vote on, this is going from us to the Board Insurance Committee. They can change everything we do.
Right.
So all we're doing is sending them what it is we think we would like to see happen. They can change everything we've done, but our role is to try and make sure the employees are represented. So what are your wishes relative to the selection process? Anybody? The difference between the two is whether or not the Employee Insurance Committee is involved or not.
I'm of the opinion that, okay, we're, teachers and administrators and all the ones who work for the school board, this is long term, okay? Whereas we have board members who come and go. We have superintendents who come and go. They're short term. You can say what you want, you can do what you want, but they're short term. They may not have a good insight as to what we need or where we've been. We've been through some tough times, and I honestly believe that we have an employee insurance committee for a reason, and every employee that we have basically is affected with insurance, is affected by what we do, and so I think we play an important role in the process. And if we're if we're bypassed, then basically why are we here? Becomes the question. And yet we're going to give the power, and not to say anything, the board cannot change anything. That is well known because they have the fiduciary responsibility. In this particular case, the only responsibility as far as the fiduciary part is that they pay for the life insurance. Everything else is basically active people who are taking out of their pockets. So why would, in letting just the board decide, just kind of, I'm a little uneasy with that. So I feel that basically when it affects employees, we should have things going through our committee, And like I said, I've been in some rough spots for quite a while, and I've seen the ones that I came in. I listened to the older folks, and they guided me and some of the others who've been on the board for quite some time on the committee. And believe me, it has paid off. I mean, I've seen things that we're going, whoa, no, we can't do this. We ran into a tremendous spot with one of our superintendents that had we gone, and I can tell you this, the board would have been paying the insurance. We would have almost gone bankrupt. because of the situation. Because the person that we actually had chosen, but the thing is, we didn't know about what was going on until we finally did do the inquiry and the investigation, and found out that everything that she put on us was she was taking 50 cents per person, per member, per employee. And so all of this comes about, you know, and we do due diligence. Okay, when we say, okay, we'll investigate, we do. And the last RFP we had, or it wasn't really an RFP, but the last meeting we had with the voluntary benefits, we investigated. We found some fallacies. We found some errors, and of course we went with the best that we could do. So it's my opinion, and I'll stick by this. We really need to bring things that affect the employees to the Employee Insurance Committee, and then let it go on to the board. And if something happens at that point in time, then of course we've done our due diligence.
I agree, but
I think it would be beyond comprehension that somebody would not be included from this committee. I mean, so what would be the purpose of having the committee? And I think that too often, it happens quite often, like Bush says, sitting down, that, you know, if the committee's opinion is not expressed, once they make a decision, at the next board meeting, you can have a group of people, well, we didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well, you didn't know that because you didn't let us go. You know?
Yeah.
So to me, I don't understand why you would not include the person. Like, in the end result, they don't ever have to take your opinion. They can vote and whatever and do whatever they want. But at least when they make that decision, you can go back and say, now I explained this to you, and you explained it. So you should know why, you know, what the ramifications are of this. So it's beyond my comprehension why somebody wouldn't be.
So
it's not like you're going to hurt anything, you know?
Is there a motion to approve this selection process?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, Burnell and Butch, all those in favor?
Oh, public comment?
Surely.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I thought you were at City Hall.
Oh, I was. Well, I couldn't miss this. Thank you all for having me. For those of you who don't know, I'm Jeremy Hidalgo. I'm one of the school board members. And Mr. Butch, I got to tell you, that was good. That was compelling, and I appreciate your perspective on that. I just want to say that I think that action speaks louder than words, and action certainly also speaks louder than perception. You mentioned that there was a process that was followed last time whereby a company was chosen. And listen, with all due respect, I'm referencing it, I'm not throwing it out there. But I disagree that the committee at the time, which wasn't all of these people, but the committee at the time, I would argue, didn't come up with the best decision they had at the time. And I can argue that for two things, one on each side. First of all, the decision that was made was a company that did not do good for our people. And we had another company come in at the 11th hour and perform unbelievable services for this school system. I also heard you mention, as it relates to this process, that maybe you didn't mention it, someone here mentioned it, that you guys have to represent the employees. I appreciate that, and I'm not degrading that. However, I'll say it again, I was elected to represent the people, all of the people, including the employees. And I'm going to tell you that I've heard from at least a dozen, I could probably pull the emails, it may be more than a dozen, of current employees who are not happy with this discussion because they're tired of this. They were tired of being treated the way they were. And it's not like it was a secret. It's not like I just found a secret in a box and brought this to fruition a few months ago. This was a reality for employees not getting treated right, double coverage, and not having the benefit that they are afforded today. I sat through the same presentations that this committee as a body did a couple of years, 2.5 or whatever years ago. I was frankly shocked until I found out the reasons why. I was frankly shocked at the decision that was made at the time, not because I knew that this other company was incompetent. We found that out later. But because, frankly, the other two companies that went against that company shined more than that one. So, look, I'm not suggesting that that you guys shouldn't be involved. That's ridiculous. But I am saying that A, we have a large number of retirees who keep saying employee committee, employee committee. Retirees are not employees, and especially for this benefit, they're not affected. And a lot of people do not get involved. We don't have RFPs for engineers and architects. We have processes we follow. Certainly we shouldn't just flip a coin. We have processes. We don't have RFPs. An RFP is great when you're, I don't mean to pick on you, Lynn, but with a consultant like Lynn, where the general fund, where taxpayers are paying, absolutely we need an RFP, because he's going to provide us with a fee for service. In this case, it's not the same at all. And I think we're wasting time, and I know why we're doing it, and I respect it. And I just wanted to come here tonight and ask all active employees, because I'm going to engage the active employees at this point, because they are the ones who are going to be negatively impacted by this kind of, it's back to perception. We talked about the perception before.
So what you're saying is that you want to nilly-willy just choose somebody. Okay, Bernard's not doing well with the air conditioning, so we'll get up a bill to come and do it. That's what you're saying.
What I'm saying is that we had somebody. We left it alone. They were doing their job until we found out they were not doing their job to their full extent. There were only 3 people who came and presented to this committee the last go round. 3 companies.
6 minutes.
3? No, sir. 2.5 years ago.
Oh, that.
I sat through 3 hours of presentations. Okay, so I'm glad you brought that up. To suggest that 6 minutes. We heard these presentations before, sir. We heard them for an hour,
Chairman.
3 times. So if you wanted to hear it again, and that's fine if you wanted to hear it again. I didn't need to hear it again, and obviously my fellow board members didn't. What I am saying is that the company we had was not a thank you very much, was not an RFP process. We chose the company. They came in, they screwed up, and they got fired. And that's how everyone should be held accountable. I'll be the first one on that podium as long as I'm still on this board. If they screw something up, I'll make the motion, guy. I'll make the motion. But what we're doing here, I think, is ridiculous for the purpose. It's not to suggest that you guys shouldn't be involved in the process. I've never said that. You didn't suggest it. I just want to make it clear. I've never said that. But I am going to fight against this, because I do believe it's not only a waste of resources from the system, a system that's saying we don't need this, it doesn't make sense, and we frankly don't want it. I'm asking the active employees here tonight to try to do the right thing, what I believe is the right thing. I'm fighting for it on the board no matter what happens. I just wanted to let you know.
Thank you, Mr. Hidalgo.
Thank you for the time.
I appreciate it. A couple of comments, don't need a response. Butch, you want to respond first?
Okay, when we had the 3-hour conference, I was there, and the presentation was made, great presentation. We were left with the information. We took the information, everybody took a piece and whatnot. One group particularly, and I've said this before on this floor, one group had that they were representing these particular parishes. We called the parishes. They said no. So what do you do with that? Okay? The second one that was eliminated basically said that they had the documentation to do work in Louisiana. We checked. There was nothing on that. The Secretary of State. We asked. We went through Baton Rouge, and there was nothing there. Everything was going through Greenville, Mississippi, or something. So that was false. So we had one company left that was out of Baton Rouge, did what they said they were going to do. Now, in due course, when you're looking at we're not getting correct information, that was the only thing we could do. I mean, and we agreed to that. The other thing is, when you're looking at, if you tell me that you're here and you're working with this particular parish and you're not, guess what? I mean, that's falsification. Okay? Would you hire somebody like that? I would. And it's not to say that, and like this thing where this thing came up out, where we just go ahead nilly-willy, and I'm not saying these guys are not good. Fellas, I want you to understand that. Okay, but the thing is that the way it's done, the process, because we went through a severe exchange of ideas when we had another superintendent, a severe. And I mean, people were tuning in to the channel to watch the last board and this particular superintendent. And that's not what we want, okay? No, we didn't have an RFP where we had these things. But then again, it was new to me, and it was okay. But as long as you know, if you tell me that yes, I have this, or I don't have, that's fine. But don't lie to me, especially in a governmental situation.
And I think a lot of us feel that the last situation was not handled properly. And we're trying to correct that. Just a couple of comments. We're not choosing a vendor tonight.
No.
We're working on an RFP to try to make sure everybody has a fair chance. The issue of an RFP was made on the board floor by a board member. I was emailed by the superintendent who said, do the research on the voluntary benefits RFP and get them to Mona Bonilla. So that's why we're here tonight, because a board member said it, and the superintendent directed me, and I sent the research to Mona. So I don't ever think it's wasting time to try and do the right thing. I don't think that's ever a waste of time.
I think Butch said it earlier about the pick and choose. I think if you do a standard procedure, this is what we do and this is what you follow. And it doesn't affect me this time, you're right. It doesn't affect me at all.
But it does.
But on the other hand, the next one that you may say, oh no, we're not gonna do it there, does affect me. So if you do it, consistently, it's not a problem. And like we said earlier, the board ultimately decides it. So it's
that's the other thing I want to comment on, because it was mentioned earlier. Any effort to divide active and retirees is not well received by this group. Actives have voted on retiree insurance and doing away with it. Retirees vote with active employees. The whole purpose of this committee is to try to work cooperatively. And part of this RFP is to try to get this vendor to do the same work with retirees. For one reason, we have a long-term care policy, active and retirees have paid into, that there was a problem with balancing invoices and we got told they might go out of business. And so we're trying to make sure, at least among ourselves, we're not being divisive. So I hope those outside do not see this as a divided committee, because we are not. We want what's best for all the employees.
And we've said from the beginning, we need a fair process. Let's compare apples to apples, oranges to oranges. An RFP will do that. You're looking at the same, what was presented. I was not on the committee 3 years ago when y'all heard the presentations. I just heard the short version last year, and it was like, wow, that didn't say much. I think an RFP will narrow it down, and nobody can say that it wasn't done fairly. And that's what we kept saying as a committee, is we want a fair process. Same company, vendor may get it, and if so, so be it, and good for them. But we need to give everybody a fair chance at this. That's my personal opinion.
And even at the same time, we may be able to get a third-party vendor to come in and take care of perhaps the retirees' situations and whatnot, giving them more opportunity. I mean, there's a lot of things that we need to think about.
So, any more questions or comments?
Yes, ma'am. My name is Bob Denny, and I'm a bus driver. And I have had the experience with the previous vendor and with the current vendor.
Right.
I happen to be a new employee twice. A very short period of time.
It's the second run.
If you understand the medical situation in my house, you would understand, but I'm not going to bore you with that. The first time I was an active and full-time employee after being a substitute bus driver, and that's a false statement. There is no such thing.
Don't we all know?
When I came to the meeting, I was told we'd be called and we would enroll. The person that called, I don't know their name. I barely remember the company's name. They called me on a Sunday night about 8:30 to get it done for like the next day, Monday. The rudest person I have ever spoken to. I asked to send me a copy of the dentist, and they said, we don't do that. That's all online. What I call a previous life, I was in the insurance business for 35 years. I've been retired and given up licenses and all of that. That's not the way you talk or treat a new employee or an old 30-year veteran employee. My experience with the current vendor, and again, I have no licenses, I have no dog in the hunt, has been exceptional. Went to Acadiana High, which is one of the primary schools, and one of the other drivers said, let's go enroll in benefits. And so I needed dental. Unfortunately, they had just stopped. They had already disconnected all of their computers, and they asked me where the schools were that I went to. They gave me a list, ended up enrolling in Judy's Middle. It was timed perfectly. When I got there, they came looking for me. And I got enrolled, got my wife enrolled, and everything has been good. So my suggestion is, I understand the committee wants to do an RFP. I've done everything from any kind of employee benefit you can, from two-person groups to very large groups, to helping 3 companies merge to go public. I can remember going and driving to the hospital, and an employee that was working just had major cancer surgery. And so, but we were able to get him covered, and he was able to fill out an application. Couldn't read it very well, but he could shake his hand through it and fill it out. So I understand, you know, what the committee is trying to do. But I also know factually that every time you do a request for proposals, you shorten the list of companies that are interested.
Can't get much shorter.
Well, I understand that. I understand that. But pretty soon, you get no interest at all, because they go through the effort to put the presentation together, they make the presentation, they spend the money on copies, they spend the money on slideshows and the whole 9 yards. And it's expensive to come out of a company's pocket. I don't care large or small, it costs a lot of money. I remember many years ago, me and a couple of people I was working with at the time, we tried to do the school board. Well, we thought we had the inside track because we knew somebody, but we didn't know anybody. We spent almost $500 in making copies of all of the documents provided to us. We sent it to directly to 17 different brokers or home office companies that said they would give us a proposal. We got 0 back. And that's what you were talking about in the times of, you know, your claims history was so bad, nobody would even take a shot at it. I would encourage the committee to think long and hard before they request another proposal. Because, as he was saying, I think the circle of people that I talked to as a bus driver are very happy with the way enrollment went, and obviously the benefits of it.
I appreciate the comments, but what we're doing tonight is not choosing a vendor. No. What we're doing is trying to make an RFP that is fair for everyone and that involves this committee so the employees have some input. The current RFP does not do that as far as employees.
Why is an RFP even necessary?
Because what happened to this committee should never be allowed to happen again. What happened to the board should never be allowed to happen again. The current vendor signed a 1-year contract. That contract expires. So we have to have some means of choosing the next person. We may choose the same vendor, but they have a 1-year contract.
Are you going to, and again, I may be going beyond this discussion, but are you going to do an RFP for health insurance also?
I think we did. That's how we got Mr. Fontaine. I know we had people come and make presentations, yes.
Are you going to do it simultaneous to the voluntary?
No.
Why would you not?
We don't need to.
Because they're totally different.
I understand they're different, but all I'm saying is, if you're going to do one, do both.
No.
We're not going to do them simultaneously.
Look, you know, you talked about the money that you spent. These guys spent some money coming here for a 6-minute presentation. So did the others. 6 minutes. People coming in from all over. 6 minutes. You think you can get a lot from 6 minutes? We spent half a day at the conference center listening to the 3 that it sounds like an RFP, but it wasn't. We just let them present. It was how it was. That's how it was. Okay, we know better.
This is the situation this committee, was presented with. We got told, we've been meeting every quarter just like we're supposed to. We hear all the information, and all of a sudden, there's a crisis. And I asked, does anyone on this committee know anything about the crisis? No one on this committee, who represents every employee in this parish, knew anything about a crisis. I'm not denying that there were problems and maybe even a crisis. But because of the way it was presented, in the midst of open enrollment, Chicken Little, the sky's falling and we have to get a vendor. I would not have liked to have been on that board and have had to have made that final decision. All we're doing right now is trying to finalize the RFP, and whoever the best vendor is, hopefully will be hired by that board, not by this committee. We make a recommendation, that's all we do. But having a selection process that excludes this committee is fundamentally wrong, in my opinion. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Just want to address a couple of comments that have been said tonight. I think there's a perception from some sitting around a table that maybe weren't here or in the third quarter of 2018 that the process was done, but you said willy-nilly. Just want to bring everybody back to the third quarter of last year and what transpired in this room. Us and 5 or 6 other competitors met with the board insurance committee.
Correct.
And in front of the board, and at both of those occasions they had a list of questions. I don't know how many it was. I don't know whether it said RFP at the top or what, but I'll tell you that those questions that were asked of all of us, and by the way, those 6 people that were in the room, I would say account for probably 80 to 90% of the school board business in Louisiana. So you had all of the players here. They were asked all of these questions that talked about qualifications, experience, bandwidth, capability. All these questions were asked to all of them, and we spent significant time there. Now, when we came to this committee, I think the understanding we had was that we were originally going to have 20 minutes. You all made a decision because people I think wanted to go home that night.
No, because they wanted the same amount of time as the board.
Okay, well, it went from 20 to 6. Okay, so I guess my point is that all of the players in this business, in this industry, that I said account for, I say 80, that's conservative in Louisiana. It's really more than that. They all had a chance to answer all these questions that are basically a summary of an RFP that you're sitting there looking at. But with that being said, there was one other thing that we talked about in 2018, and that was that we would have quarterly meetings to talk about how we're doing. Well, we're running up on the end of the first quarter, and I'll tell you that one of the comments here is talking about employees being represented. To me, we've been at this now for about 4 months, okay? And out of 4,000 surveys that were completed by active employees, we had 17 that had a negative response.
That you did the survey, correct?
We did the survey. That's correct. Okay, so we asked them, and it's anonymous. Okay, we asked them to tell us about their experience. 17 out of 4,000 had a negative experience. Now, like I said, we've been at this for 4 months. I think Mona and central office staff could speak to any questions, problems, concerns that we've had to this point. Okay, but I'll say that the purpose of asking those questions and doing that due diligence is to get a qualified provider. You have a qualified provider, and your employees are telling you that they're happy with them. And that's all I have to say.
And the board may give you the business again, but we're going to do it the right way.
I'm just addressing the comments that I've heard. I understand. I appreciate it.
What is the motion on the floor is to adopt the selection process that was presented to you.
Call for the question.
That includes.
Can I ask one question before we vote, please? Ms. Mona.
Question's been called for, so we have to vote on the call for the question. The motion is to call a question. All those in favor?
So
Calling the question says the discussion ends, and then we're going to vote. So the
I'd like
motion
to
is to
ask a
call the
question if
question.
you don't mind saying nay.
I'll withdraw, so here.
Mr. Raj, you may ask your question.
Thank you. So, one of the most experienced people in the room, Ms. Bernard, correct? How long have you been director of insurance?
No, she's not.
Over 24 years.
Okay.
No.
I said one of the most.
She, okay.
Oh, I know.
You got this on
I know, one of the
No.
most. Anyway, so, and I may have asked this in past meetings, but as far as a renewal of a contract, such as a voluntary benefit, something that is not, like Mr. Hidalgo said, I think it was Mr. Hidalgo, said that is used to, any tax base, any taxpayer money is used for. Do other systems, or have we in the past just had automatic, not automatic, but renewals of contracts such as this, if we're satisfied, if employees are satisfied? That's a pretty glaring, 17 out of 4,000 negatives, so that means a lot of positives, obviously. And I had a really good experience at my facility. We have 90 employees. All 90 employees were very happy with it. I was very happy. As an administrator, it's very easy to work with them. And again, I'm only one school out of 50, however many schools we have. But again, could you talk to the process that we've had in the past and also maybe other districts around us?
Contracts are automatically renewed unless you want to exercise a termination language. So
But that board meeting, the board did say,
This is a
one-year
one-year
contract,
contract.
it is
it
a
comes
one-year
back,
contract.
and RFP.
And that's the problem I have with the whole discussion. We had about decided we were doing an RFP. That was what, I think it was Mr. Messick, I don't remember which board member. And then I got the call from Don. Most of us came here to the last meeting to vote on an RFP. That's what we all thought. And you stood up and said, my recommendation is we don't do an RFP.
That is fine.
So, you know, all of us were taken back.
I
So,
wouldn't say all of us.
well, most of us were taken back. So, my feeling is that they have a one-year contract. The contract ends in 1 year. We are not hiring a vendor. We are not saying don't hire a vendor. We are trying to write an RFP that can be used to have everybody compared apples to apples. Can we vote, please, on the selection process?
Ms. Mounts, can I say something? Or ask a question or something? So before, I think it was 4 years ago when we had the selection of the benefits committee, of which we were one of the participants, but ultimately it went to First Financial.
I understand.
But there was no RFP in that process.
That was a mistake, in my opinion. I wasn't here.
Okay, so that was, and that process was wrong. For some reason I thought you were here. So that was a bad process, and now you want to do the RFP now.
Well,
that's what I was trying to clear up.
I
I didn't
think
know.
a prime example, if there was such a problem for financial, maybe it's because there was no RFP and it wasn't vetted properly.
Don't have anything to argue. I just didn't know because I knew there wasn't an RFP before, and I was trying
I
to see why is there.
All I want is it to be fair.
I didn't know.
But let me tell you, and you're absolutely right. There was no RFP. Okay,
You want to correct your email.
we were told just to come in and we were going to listen to some presentations, and that's what we did. And then we took the information from the presentations, and then we divvied it up to do the investigation. I mean, the retired teachers have a lot of time, and so we did. And the results were what they were at the time, simply because of some inconsistencies in the information we were given. That's it.
Got it.
There's no bias one way or the other. It was 3 companies. Presentation was done. There was some discrepancies, and basically that's how it was done.
And not question that process at all. I just didn't know why before we didn't have an RFP, and now it's so. And important, what we know is that typically what we see in the schools that we do, which is well in excess of 100 school districts, is there typically an automatic renewal if you're doing what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
That is the typical, and I'm not saying that as a self-serving, I'm saying that is what we typically have in every school district. And what happens is when you make a mistake, or somebody has something better, or you weren't forthcoming or honest or something about it and you're not treating the employees correctly, well, guess what? Here it comes, and you could get moved out.
Yes.
In this process, I will say this. This was it was a big undertaking for us because trying to take on 4,200 employees to enroll in the 4th quarter with 1 month to build out a case and to do that, I own the company. So I come here. I own this company. I come here because I care, because it's our reputation If we make a mistake in your school district, we will not get any more schools in Louisiana.
I will
So-
say it for the last time. I appreciate your comments and I appreciate your being
I do, it's just that when you said the thing about the surveys, yes, we do the surveys, but we do the surveys. You're right, because we didn't want to put that on the school employees. What we do is we take a different computer and we let them enter the information in the survey. It's not something that we are saying, do you like me? We're actually doing that. They have a computer turned around. Will, am I saying this correctly?
Yes.
They have a computer turned around. Our enrollers cannot see that survey. So I want to make sure that everybody knows that. I just want to make sure that was clear because it didn't seem very
We're
clear.
going to vote one
Okay.
way or the other because it seems that people are concerned about who the vendor is going to be. That is not my concern at this point at all. My concern is the process because the prior process that we went through earlier this year was not appropriate. So the motion on the floor by Mr. Mouton, I think it was, is to have a selection process according to the sheet that was handed out that allows participation by this committee. I don't know if there was a second to that motion. Burnell, did you second?
Yeah.
Okay. All those in favor of this selection process being added to the RFP so the employee insurance committee is involved, say aye.
Replacing what's in the RFP, not
Yeah.
in addition.
Yes, adding this to the
Yeah.
RFP. I'm sorry, I misstated. All those who want to have this committee involved, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes, Mona.
Okay.
Next one we have is on this. So this is the one I was telling you I got, Mona. It deals with your, and we're going to try and go quickly, folks. I know you all, this is your focus, but we still have health insurance to do tonight as well. This has to do with the project description scope of services 2.0 on your sheet. There was a question about why some of these were not scored.
Okay.
For example, why isn't it scored, the references that people have? Why isn't it scored that they are properly licensed? So what was sent to me, take some of yours from your project description and scope of services and scores them.
Okay.
So give points to the executive summary, points to the disciplinary action, points to pending lawsuits, points to terminated contracts, which helps these guys and hurts us financially, by the way. The references and then the licenses.
Okay.
Any questions about this? What it's doing is taking from this document that simply listed these things, like having a license and that kind of thing, and gives them points, so they're scored.
Okay, so executive summary, how, you give 4 points for what? Did you talk about quality of the writing?
And what's in it, what the suggestions are, what the recommendations are. I mean, it's subjective, yeah.
They don't want us to be subjective.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they can, I mean, as I said, this is
They
going
be
to
in
the
the
board.
purchasing department.
They can, it's 4 points, but if it's not proper, it can go to the board insurance committee and they can delete.
Okay.
Um,
Okay, got it. And the
And-
references, is that 1 point for one reference, or you're talking about,
Yeah, I thought it should, are we asking for 4 references?
I thought we asked for 5.
Yeah, I think it's
5.
Well, should we
wanna go up
make
to
it
5?
4 and a point for each?
Okay,
That'd be either, so we change it from 5 references to 4 with 1 point
got
for
it.
1, 4 points for 4.
Okay,
And those references
I'll add that.
have the contact information as well.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, do I have a motion to score the executive summary, the list and citations of any disciplinary action, any pending lawsuits, lost or terminated contracts, references, and licenses? So it's, okay. Mr. Stansberry, is there a second? Katie, second?
Second that motion.
All those in favor? Opposed? I have a quick question in the same area. It says sample contract. Do we ask a vendor to provide a contract? Why?
We give it to our attorney for review, but they propose the contract.
Why doesn't the Lafayette Parish school system have its own contract, for goodness sake?
I don't know of many cases where we write the contract. Most of the time, we ask for a contract and then we have it reviewed.
Why would you ask the
do you know,
vendor
John?
you're hiring to write a contract?
That's what they do.
It's industry standard. And we give the contract, and then it's a lot easier for us to give you a template and then let you tear it apart than it is for you to have somebody spend the time to do a template for every single service that you do.
Well, at the city was self-funded and we had our own contract. Interesting. Okay, last one. Pat? There you go. This is a statement that I had asked Mona to add, and it wasn't added, and there may be a reason it wasn't added, but it came from another RFP. It says the broker shall ensure that no improper, unethical, or illegal relationship or conflicts of interest exist between the broker and his firm with any employee, employee insurance advisory committee member, board member, or any principal of LPSB. Is there a reason that was not included? It could have just been overlooked because we had about 2 inches thick of material.
I guess because I thought we had already covered conflict of interest with the language Lee gave me, but I can add it. It's no problem.
Okay, if you would, can I have a motion and a second to add this paragraph to the RFP?
That's not right above, the paragraph right above 2.0.
Right, talks about conflict of interest. No, it is there. I'm sorry, my error. I missed it. It just says unethical. It just leaves out illegal or improper. We can just add those 2 words. Thank you very much. Okay. Any more suggestions, comments, questions about the RFP?
That's it.
Do I have a motion to approve the RFP as amended and sent it to the board insurance committee from here?
Also moved.
Katie? Okay.
Katie did it, I'll say.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we're done with vendors and RFP. Now we move on to health insurance. And before we do that, if you all want to schedule a quarterly report for this committee, we're happy to do that. The other thing is I had asked you to find out something about the long-term care insurance because I've had a lot of questions about that. So I don't need it tonight.
Yeah, I'd love to know more about it. I do. So we'll absolutely dig into that.
I'll print mine.
Okay, Mr. Fontaine.
Thank you.
Hello? Hello? The what?
Doug.
No, don't
Go outside.
I was going to start answering hello.
He's got his earphones in. Everybody can hear him.
I was fixing to answer.
Then I'm going to be worried about you.
Yeah.
Did anybody not sign the roll sheet before I give it to Mom? Okay? If you pass it down to Miss Mom, I'd appreciate it. Mr. Fontaine, the floor is yours.
You didn't, no, pass it around.
What is it?
Deborah didn't sign it.
Deborah needs to.
I thought you meant.
All right.
There you are.
So I'm going to take you to, if you remember from last meeting, we went through the year-end data for 2018, and I told you that we would meet and update the data through February. We were able to do that, and then prepare budget analysis and look at any type of savings alternatives with regard to that budget analysis. So we'll get started on in the first tab on page 1. And,
Excuse me, Lynn. One thing that we neglected with the RFP, none of the time frame. We're going to send this to the Board of Insurance Committee.
I'll have to check with Dr. Aguilar and see, and the board president, see what they want to do.
Okay, would you let us know?
Yes, ma'am.
In case we need to be at any other meeting.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Lynn. I apologize.
So if you remember from the 2018 reporting we talked about at the last meeting, we had a 7.5% increase in our plan costs in 2018, predominantly from a additional number of high-cost claimants on the medical side, and some additional pharmacy claims with regard to specialty medications. In that, we're looking at the January-February data, which is much better. I also reported that many of those large claimants were not ongoing. We were successful in negotiating some big cost savings on the pharmacy for some of our high-dollar cancer claimants, things like that. A lot of this, claims information for January, February will show you where we've gotten some savings in there. So if we're looking at the best way to compare these is on page 2, because we're comparing 2 months to a full 12 months. So I've put things in a per employee per month order for you as we usually do. So I'll take you through the January, February 2019, basically 1%. From a medical claim standpoint, up 5.8. Prescription drugs down 20.4. Total claims down 4.3. Our plan reimbursements up some 70%. We had our pharmacy rebates paid in February. We also, remember I talked to you about the pending reinsurance payments that were due to the plan, so significant increase there. Our retiree drug subsidies, so our net claims paid down some 10.1%. Total Blue Cross Blue Cross plan costs down 8.9%. If you remember, during the renewal process, we were able to negotiate a rate decrease on your Humana Medicare Advantage plan. That was about 4%, 3.9%. So our total plan cost is down 8.8%. If you remember, 2016 was a good year. Costs went down that year. 2017 up, and we're back down. So the anomaly of the high cost claimants this past year, I do think is going to calm down, but we're monitoring it closely. On page 3, you see it on depicted on a monthly basis here. So for example, you see that $875,000 prescription drug rebate paid in January. You see the retiree drug subsidies, but that $69,783 in reinsurance received in January, and then $71,967. Those reimbursements back to the plan were for claims incurred in 2018, so that brought some costs down as well. So rebates also will be increasing in 2019 because we renegotiated the 2019 pharmacy contract, and our rebates will be increasing some $1,360,000. So we also have that to factor in. So we've all got good looking information there. Taking you through the rest of the reporting here, really not much. We've talked a lot about your enrollment and demographics and that type of thing. The summary of it all is we know that our retiree population is growing faster than the active population. That's one thing that we have to face. Also, the other thing that we constantly monitored, and I told you this is from the night y'all met me, one of the things that school systems are always plagued with, especially where you're located. You're right in the heart of the oil field, oil patch down here. You guys have really not been affected by that as much as I really thought you would be, because as all of these companies during the last few years were laying off employees, I was suspecting us to pick up a lot of membership, a lot of spouses, a lot of children, things like that. We really haven't. Okay, that has not changed much. our membership increase from 17 to 18, 18 to 19, just right on pace, maybe slightly more than participation. But at the same time, when I look at the claims, other school systems might be paying 35, 40% more for a spouse than they are for their own active employees as far as claims goes. We're not having that right now. Actually, our spousal claims have actually been a little less than employees, so pleased to tell you that, and I'm going to take you to page 6 to show you those figures. Average spousal claims are 1.3% higher than employee claims, and actually almost 1% lower on a 3-year average. I can tell you that is not the same data that I'm reporting on some of the other school systems, and so you guys have not had that influx of membership here. And part of that is in your contribution strategy, but a little luck involved there as well. Medical claims wise, I told you about the in the January, February period. This is still some of the claims coming from the 2018 high cost claimants that are still coming in. But of course, this is gross claims. Remember that we had reinsurance reimbursements on these folks. So basically during the first 2 months of this year, we've had 17 members over 50,000 for a total of $1,293,000 as compared to last year, only 6, totaling $1,001,000. Not a big increase from a total monetary standpoint. We're monitoring that as well. Prescription drugs, pretty big decrease here, folks, 20.4%.
What
Okay?
page you on, Lincoln?
I'm on page 8. Okay? If you remember, we put in several cost containment strategies, high dollar claims review, number of other things, tightened a bit on the formulary, and of course we're renegotiating these rebates every year. The 2019 savings to the plan with the negotiated rebates, discounts, all of that type of thing on our pharmacy contract. Our projected savings there are about $2.4 million this year, so that's factored in to the budget that I have prepared for you later in the presentation here. From a total claims perspective, we're down about 4.3%. On page 10, this is important information for you. You know about your 3 plans, Enhanced, Basic, and Blue Saver. Last couple of years, remember, we really haven't changed rates in the plan since 2015, okay? When that happens, a lot of times people get financially comfortable, and we were actually seeing some migration back to the Enhanced plan, okay? Well, in 2019, and this is part of education and communication, Mona and her staff get the pat on the back for that, but you can see that Blue Saver in 2019 is now gaining some steam from a participation standpoint, but I can tell you, it's subsidizing the other 2 plans, okay? Look at the 3 bullets at the bottom. The Enhanced plan is 14.6% of your participation, 24.4% of your claims. Basic plan, 65.8% of your participation, 66.9%, about break even. Blue Saver, 19.6% of your participation, only 8.7% of your claims.
But isn't that the nature of the Blue Saver? I mean, the people who are doing the Blue Saver are the people who are young and healthy, right?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
If you really do the math, it's hard to not take a strong look at the Blue Saver. It really is. Okay. So we're going to continue our communication on the merits of the Blue Saver plan. At the same time, really want to continue the merits of the Medicare Advantage plan. We did not see an increase in participation there, even though costs are lower and benefits are higher. So we're going to continue our efforts there. We had a decrease in premium there, if you remember. So all of this factors into the budget. The reason I spent some time on this page is when we get into the saving strategies later on in the program, I want you to remember these statistics, okay? Total plan costs, once again, plan costs have decreased 8.8% in the first 2 months here of 2019. Plan costs have averaged. I don't know if I've ever given you guys this figure, but your plan cost increases since 2012, okay, are averaging 2.8%.
That's phenomenal.
Folks, that's smoking, okay? I'm not trying to use any kind of slang term, but you know, you've got a medical trend here of 7%, 6-7% nationally, as far as an inflationary trend in healthcare. That's actually down right now from previous years. Okay, if you can remember when the Affordable Care Act started, okay, we were getting out of being in the teens back then. Okay, as far as healthcare inflation goes. All right, so plans have a goal to at least beat trend. You're cutting trend in half or more. Okay, so you've done quite well with containing your cost into the plan over the last several years here. Okay. On our claims by type of service, this is pretty exactly what I suspected it to be. Being we have gone through these high-cost claimants last year, and I do believe that rash of them was an anomaly to have that many high-cost cancer claims and things like that. I will tell you that it starts off on an inpatient basis, and after you have the surgery and all, then it'll show up on the outpatient basis. So I did suspect the inpatient to go down, the outpatient to go up. Still, the outpatient numbers are actually less, so our costs are actually down. On an inpatient basis by diagnosis, if you look back, they might have flip-flopped a couple of years, and then in 2015 we had that high-cost cancer year, okay? But musculoskeletal and circulatory, in every school system I have, it's the same thing. Now, neoplasms, which is cancer, came down this year, okay, because we're coming off of those treatments. Another thing that I'm going to point you to here is the endocrine metabolic disease. That's number 3. What is that? That's diabetes, folks. Okay? And in any group, especially your size with your demographics, if there's anything that's kind of low-hanging fruit that we can work on, this will be an area, okay? Reason being, we want to make certain that when we're talking about a diabetic population, that they are, they're being compliant, okay? The difference between a compliant diabetic in their course of treatment and non-compliant is not hundreds of dollars, but tens of thousands of dollars, okay? So we're making sure that we're on top of that through all of our cost containment and management programs as well. And we'll be trying to introduce some more things to keep that diabetic because cost down. It's mostly in the area of the prescription drugs, okay? So we want to make something before somebody gets on to these new diabetic medications that you see advertised on TV every night, that they have tried the lower cost alternatives. On our page 14, Flaxers and Health, which is the second to highest. I just want to tell you that does include maintenance chemo, and that's why you see that category there on the outpatient diagnosis type of thing. Top facilities, really nothing to speak of there. It's in probably on the first 2 in the order that they are going to appear quarter after quarter. Now sometimes you'll see MD Anderson in there when we have some high-cost cancers going on, and then sometimes you won't, and they'll be replaced by another provider, but everything's in network, so we're doing very good there. Page 16, back to 87% generic utilization. Folks, I'll tell you, that's a really good number for our school system, okay? Most of the time I'm seeing 85, 86, and just starting to get there. Okay, at 87, very compliant population here, so that's really good. It's going to blow your mind when you turn the page, though. Because if 87% of the medications only represent 12% of the dollars, okay, it tells you what the impact of all of these new high-cost medications mean to your plan. Because the number of prescriptions is actually going down, okay? But every time somebody gets a script for a Humira or a Nimbra or a Stelara or some of these other high-cost diabetic medications, those aren't a few $100s a month, they're several thousand. Most of them over $5,000 a month, okay? So if we're talking about rheumatoid arthritis, Crohn's disease, things like that, those medications are all ranging from anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 a month, okay? And so they impact these statistics greatly when just you get a couple of more folks on these meds. So we're trying to make certain that everything we're doing around pharmacy is to make sure that people get the medications they need, okay, but the right medications and do it cost effective, okay, and cut waste out. You'll see on page 18 that our utilization is actually coming down. We went from 3 scripts to 2.7, nice little 10% drop. On page 19, I can tell you what I do like about this is look what's going where hydrocodones come from, and just now they're barely making the list here. So that's come down greatly, and you don't have a number of high dollar diabetic medications in here, and you don't have a ton of ADHD. When I look at this report on so many other cases, now hydrocodone isn't the big problem, it's ADHD medications, okay? Some of them, I'll see 2 or 3 different ADHD medications on this report, and so you people aren't as crazy as you think sometimes. All right, so so if we talk about the first, with the hydrocodone and things like that, these are the top medications by number of scripts. This report on page 20 gives you the top 10 drugs by dollar amount. These top 10 medications only represent 1.9% of your total prescriptions, but 1/3 of your cost. Oh.
Dude, and look at them. I know.
Okay?
You see that every night.
Humira.
Yes.
I don't know if you've ever turned the TV on in the last 2 years and not seen a Humira commercial if you watch primetime TV.
Yeah.
A lot of these other medications are indicative of your experience last year. You're not going to repeat years and see this many cancer medications on this list, okay? You had a high degree of high dollar cancers. Some of that's going to go away, okay? This Eliquis and the Xarelto on this list, these are these new high dollar blood thinners, okay? So a lot of that, those medications are important. They're expensive. You don't have a ton of it, but they're quite costly. From a PPO savings standpoint, 70.2%. Why are we still in Blue Cross's network? 70.2%. Network utilization still high at 97.3. That's just because of some of the cancer treatment that just a few of the services were out of network. We're still going to go right back to the 98, 99, that type of thing. Cost breakdown. When you can run your plan, and we bragged about this at the last meeting and several before. You know, you talk about Medicare, Medicaid, this plan, that plan. If you were fully insured and we were paying Blue Cross, okay, a premium every month and we took no risk. Your fixed costs for administration, renting the PPO network, case management, utilization review, all of the other components that belong in the administration of a health plan. You know, in many cases, I've seen fixed costs over 20%. You're running your plan for 7.8%. And actually, that percentage has creeped up only because your claims have gone down, okay? It's not like you had a fixed cost increase or anything like that. So the only thing that went up this year, fixed cost wise, is a little bit on reinsurance, but not much at all. From a contribution standpoint, plan cost net of employee contributions has decreased 11.9%. And then finally, on page 25, you can see where the red is. Claims over 200,000 when we compare the two periods, down that $564,000 there. Total medical up some 2.2%. Page 26, when you ever want to go back to reference this, and I just bullet all of the high points of the presentation there. Any questions on the data? Okay. This takes us to the next section, which I'll start off with the summary budget considerations. Some of this might be repetitive, but these considerations are basically to set the table for mathematical preparation of the budget. So we know about our 7.5% increase as compared to 2017. Planned costs in 2017 were down some 7.6% as compared to 2016. So we went down 7.5%, we went up 7.5%, and now we're down on the first 2 months 8.8%. But even though we had a higher cost year in 2018, it was still only 3.5% higher than 2016. Okay. 2017 was just a really big deal. Group health plan costs have increased on average 2.8% over the last 5 years. Board contributions increased a little less than 1%. As you know, nobody's changed the rate here since 2015. When I say go up 1%, that's just because of demographics. If we have less family participation in the plan, obviously the employee contributions our board contributions go down proportionally. Okay, it's just all based on the average there. So neither the employee contributions or board contributions have really increased or decreased since 2017. Demographically, just a little bit of a change there. Medical claims increased by 17% on a gross basis. And due to the high-cost claimants in 2018, prescription drugs 4.3. The funding of contribution ratio, so 99.1. What does that mean? Between the board contributions and employee contributions, we spent 99.1% of what we funded. So we came that close, within 1% of hitting our funding, and then we would have been in a deficit, okay? So remember, we have to have enough money funded into the plan to pay our expenses here. All of that being said, keep in mind that, you know, I've told you that 2018 was a higher cost year, and a lot of that cost is not ongoing. Prescription drug, so the next bullet, we're kind of recapping on where our participation is in the 3 different plans, and the fact that the enhanced plans claims are much higher. And I'll also introduce that we negotiated for 2019 $2.4 million in savings contractually. That's not changing a benefit whatsoever. Those are just the increased rebates and discounts that we negotiated on your behalf with RX benefits. Medical claims for January and February decreased by 5.8%. Our prescription drug claims for January and February decreased by the 20.4%. The Humana down 3.9%. Total claim costs down to 8.8%. Bringing us to page 28. Our 2018 net paid claims after reimbursements of reinsurance, $45,484,487. Adding to that the January, February net claims figure of $6.8 million, for a total net paid claims from January of 18 through February of 19 of $52,350,148. We add to that the Humana premium, And this is fixed, so it should be pretty accurate. The only thing that could really change that is participation. We don't have much change in participation, so that's a good hard cost. Fixed cost, same thing, $3,916, $3,916,656. All of this gives us a projected net claims cost. So this is how I prepared this for you. We cannot prepare a budget without thinking that the cost of healthcare is going up. Okay? I would not be doing you a proper job if I'm projecting your cost and telling you that the cost of healthcare is going up. So I'm putting the 6% trend in. Okay? At the same time, I'm backing out the $2.4 million that we negotiated for pharmacy savings. Okay? I add to that the fixed cost. I add to that the Humana. Okay? All of that totals to a projected total plan cost of $50,276,026 annually. Our projected funding right now is $50,204,772. So if this projection were to hold true, we would be almost right at break even, just slightly under. How much of an increase would we need to break even? A little less than 1%. Next page just depicts your 3 plans, so we have that for reference. So in order to not have any type of rate adjustment at this particular period, we look at saving strategies. We can increase the first bullet, and we talked about this in the past, increase the enhanced and basic plan prescription drug out of pocket from $800 to $1,000. And here's the reason why. Projected total savings of $265,000. That would only impact, okay, every time I prepare these things for you, my goal is to find where we can provide savings with the least impact to your employees. This would only impact some 12% of your total membership, okay? At the same time, when we talk about these medications costing $100,000 plus a year, and we're asking somebody to pay $1,000 of it, we're asking them to cost share 1% of that medication. Okay? And that's the only folks that are hitting that out-of-pocket tax. Right? So if we talk about specialty medications today, right? Specialty medications today are driving about 1/3 of your pharmacy costs. You know what you're paying annually? Millions of dollars. Okay? They're projected to be as much as 50% of your total pharmacy costs by 2020. So put yourself in the shoes of a retiree with rheumatoid arthritis, or put yourselves in the shoes of an employee with Crohn's disease. And I'm taking these medications. They're not working anymore. I'm winding up in the hospital. I'm going to have to get on this med. Okay? Right now, your plan provides a co-payment where they pay 10% of that medication up to $150. Okay? This alternative is basically going to make them pay one more co-payment. And I'm looking for things that provide the minimal amount of disruption and at the same time that have some degree of fairness to it. So that's the emphasis there, and the savings are pretty substantial. Second bullet is increase the enhanced plans medical out of pocket from $4,200 to $4,750. You know how much the enhanced plan is not really paying for itself there. So that was one of the areas there. Because of the small participation in the enhanced plan, we're not talking about great savings there, but it's just to put it on the same basis. We're also talking about that same type of increase to the out-of-pocket on the basic plan at $165,000 of savings. This only affects 2% of your membership. Okay, I don't know if y'all realize it, but when we've talked about this reporting in the past, not many people meet your deductible. Okay, not many people get you out of pocket. 90% of your claims are coming from less than 10% of your membership. So when you make these kinds of changes, you're not affecting the masses, okay? But you are going to give yourself some savings. Yes, ma'am?
Is that unusual in a school system to have 90% of your claims come from 10%?
No, ma'am.
That's the
you know, in my 35 years of doing this, probably 25, 30 years of it's always been the 80-20 rule. 20% of your membership drives 80% of the cost. Y'all heard it for decades. That's changed. The cost of these high dollar services like a high dollar cancer or somebody on a high dollar med. I mean, think about it. You never had medications that cost this much. It's just, this is all new in the last 3 to 5 years. So, you know, the statistics now are becoming more of 10, 15% versus the 20. In your case, because you're a group that covers retirees, and the most of your retirees are on the plan, we're dealing with a different demographic. Okay? Not good or bad, it's just that most private sector businesses, when somebody hits age 65, they're not on their plan anymore. So we're going to have to deal with the cost of these medications.
You know, if I can interject, my wife went to the doctor and whatnot, and I've said this before because it happened before. She was prescribed the medication. She goes to the pharmacist, and he's really good. And it's a compounding situation. They take 2 tubes, squeeze it together, compound it, and give you a little jar. And it's like $1,000. If you buy, it's $10 and $10 for the 2 tubes, and they give you the jar.
Nice.
That's what happened.
Crazy.
Seriously. And it happened.
This was about 4 years ago, just about every plan out there, okay? When I went through that top 10 of high-cost meds, compound meds all over it. Everybody said, whoa, we're not playing this game anymore. They got wise to it, and you don't see all these compound meds.
Not as much.
They just won't pay for compound meds like that. Why would you want to pay $3 grand for a salve that's made out of 2 $10 medications? Okay? Remember last year we took Duexis out of your plan.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay? Duexis is nothing more than 2 over-the-counter drugs mixed up into 1 pill, and it costs $2,800 a month. And if you go to an orthopedic doctor's office, chances are you're going to walk out with a sample and you say, this works real good, can I get a script for something? In most plans, okay, and there goes $2,800 for 2 medications. You can walk in any drugstore, you can walk in a convenience store and buy them, then you go to a drugstore again. Okay? Mostly Pepsi and ibuprofen.
That's crazy.
So the strategy here is that the last thing that any of your constituents want is a rate increase. Okay? Last thing the board wants to do is have to put a rate increase into the budget. We want to monitor this real closely, okay, and avoid a rate increase. If we would repeat 2018's claims, we would probably need to do that. And need to do that maybe as soon as January 1st. But I really don't think that's happening right now, especially with the first 2 months of data. The strategy here is to recommend some small, very little disruption type of benefit adjustments that will carry us through the rest of the year here. And then we'll see at that time if we would need to make any adjustments, and hopefully if this data runs like it is and these strategies work, the $2.5 million of pharmacy savings comes in there and works even better, that we will not be needing to make a adjustment. And then we can say, you know, when you go that many years from 2015, we've really knocked it out the park.
Lynn, a question. When would you want to implement this? Because generally what we like to do is have everybody go back and talk to the groups they represent and get some feedback. Do you need a vote tonight on this? I mean, do you want to implement this immediately, or can it wait till our next meeting in June?
The timeline on this to introduce it optimum would be July 1st.
So we could decide on this in June.
Well, I have to present the budget March 26th, and those changes would have to be in that budget, or we'll have to have a premium increase, but that's my deadline.
So you're saying we would have to vote on it tonight?
Or call another meeting before the 26th.
Well, I mean, we've already called an extra meeting this quarter, and I think everybody's been very
That,
patient.
remember
and I
from
don't
last
think-
meeting, that was the reason why we were
Yeah.
coming with
Yeah, right.
Well, I do have a question, and maybe I'm misreading this, okay? When I look at projected 2019 total plan cost utilizing a 6% trend and the 2019 prescription drug savings, and I understand that, that's 50,200, 50,200,000, da-da-da-da. And the projected funding is just 71,000 less. So why are we increasing this other stuff to make 500,000 when if those high cost things go down, you may not
Because
even need
we're
it?
so tight, we have no
Wiggle room.
room. I mean,
Okay.
if somebody
And
sneezes,
I
we don't
understand
even
that.
be in surplus.
And there's no surplus left that we could just write it out until we find
What is
out?
what is our
Remember, we
fund
spent 99.1% of our money last year.
Yeah, and we've done well, and I understand that. I
Well-
just,
I don't remember right offhand, I'll have to get that.
balance? Do you have our total fund balance by any chance?
I do not.
No. So nobody here has the fund balance?
She asked for our fund balance for the special, it's a special revenue fund. I don't care about that.
I mean, this
But
is
remember,
minimal,
okay,
and I
you
appreciate
got to take fund balance out the discussion, and here's the reason why. The fund balance is there if the plan terminates.
I understand.
That you got to have the money to run it out. So you don't monkey with the fund balance.
understand.
You want your plan to stand on its own with its rate structure year after year. And we've been doing well. We've been doing
Yeah,
well.
I agree, and this is not major compared to.
No,
No,
from
no.
the, well, remember the little amount of negative feedback you had from the last round of changes, which was way more than this. So I don't suspect that you'll hear much negative, especially if you educate people as to why you make this. Nobody likes change, but people are much more accepting of change if they're told why the changes were made and what was reviewed to make the changes. And you guys have done such a good job on the due diligence of all of that. And my goal is always to bring you saving strategies that are going to give your membership the least amount of pain. But at the same time, to share the cost there.
I understand.
I did contact Mr. Santani when we got this about 3:30 this afternoon, and thank you for giving us some time beforehand, and asked him, since we were very cooperative back in 2015 or 16, whenever it was, they wanted us to do some increases, which we did. I asked him if they would consider the board putting up any of this 542,000. And his comment was, get to it, is I'll see if we can get some portion of the increase added to Mona's cost center in the general fund. You did us a favor, we'll try to do you one. So I think if the motion is to approve this, the motion should also be to approve this and ask the board to contribute something to it. I mean, they might say no, but he said he would try to.
And at the same time, there's nothing wrong with continuing that conversation into, if you approve these changes, then if something were to be necessary down the road.
Could we avoid a premium increase?
Yeah, exactly.
So, and that's what has happened because we have worked cooperatively with some of the board members. He was very kind and he said, because you all did us a favor, I'm happy to look at it. That doesn't mean he has 5 votes, but I do think the purpose of this committee is to work with all the employee groups and with the board. Hopefully one day we'll get back to where we used to be and we'll all be working in one committee. But anyway.
I have a question. With these increases, where do this $542,000 come from as far as enhanced, basic, and saving? Because we kind of looked at this breakdown right here. is that, you said kind of which demographic, or where is these gonna hit? Are these, this $400, or this $542,000?
Okay,
With this cost, do you know how that breaks down?
So the first bullet, exactly, that's a good question. So let's see what's impacted with these changes. The first, remember this, none of these changes affect the high deductible plan, okay? The high deductible plan, we want to keep those benefits exactly like they are so that we have that steerage system, okay? So the from 800 to 1,000, that $200 out-of-pocket increase only affects the enhanced and basic plan. Then the increase from the 42 to 750 and the 4950 to the 5500, that those are going to affect the basic plan and the enhanced plan. So it's $35,000 of savings that'll come from the enhanced plan, $165,000 from the basic plan. The increase, the third bullet, only affects the enhanced plan.
So is there a motion to approve these savings with request to Mona that she discussed with Justin the possibility of any board contribution to increase her amount of money?
If I can make a comment, I think it would be better if we start buffering, like doing this right now, and then the rate increase is going to create some hysteria. It's going to.
So you'd rather get the goodwill from the board?
I'd like to get the goodwill from this, and we're talking 12%, 2% of the people, okay, and I understand that. So the buffering would help, and then we won't create this hysteria. If we have to increase the rates, we have to increase the rates. But let me tell you, I don't think there's any place around that gives us what we have.
No.
So
if that's the
I think
motion,
that's
I'm
a good
happy.
point. It's a good faith effort.
I'm sorry?
I said I think that's a good point. It's a good faith.
It's good faith. I mean, you know, we're doing preventive medicine.
Yeah.
You know,
it's not like you're saying, "Oh, look, we don't want to do this, but do you want to do that?"
Yeah, you really nobody wants a rate increase,
And with a little help, it could be in a position at the end of the year not to have.
And not to have it, and that's what. Yeah. So basically, I would make the motion.
What's the motion, Butch?
The motion is to accept his strategies and alternatives. Okay, so that you can put it in your budget.
Okay.
For your presentation, and that way we'll know by. And you said it would go into effect July.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we can, and at the same time we need to forewarn those who are on these plans that there is going to be a slight increase, and it's simply because of the cost. And I think everybody understands cost.
And I think, Mona, can you get out an email blast to all the current employees?
Yes,
and then we'll put it on the retiree
Yes, if you could do that, that'd be cool.
Facebook page, so people will have plenty of time.
And with that, we're going to double up on some education to give them some education on making good, wise choices.
And we really do need to get the compounding thing done and really stress that too, because I'm telling you, if you didn't know any better.
We have limits.
Yeah,
yeah, and I understand that. Yeah, because it was $300 or something. I think okay. But then we were looking at $300, and we can buy 2 tubes for a penny each.
Well, that is a good education piece.
Yes, I totally agree.
Is there a second to Butch's motion?
Yes.
Mr. Stansberry?
Yes.
All those in favor? Opposed? So everybody, please tell everybody you represent, so we don't want anybody going to the doctor and being surprised that they have to pay more than they thought they had to pay.
And this was emailed to us today, right?
Yes, this you have on email. Mona emailed it about 3:30.
I got it, I sent it out.
Yeah. And send that last page.
And I'm going to check with Mr. Santani and tell him we'll pay the big faith effort, so we hopefully won't have a rate increase.
I would also suggest that the board look at, we have this big savings account with several $1 million in it. Before the board jumped into things, let's dig into that money that the board kept putting in. If you're having a problem with insurance, that's what the money is for. It's for the people that are hard now, not for the people that are going to be hard 20 years from now.
You're talking about the OPEB trust?
The OPEB trust, yes.
We unfortunately can't pull anything out of it.
Yeah, they're going to do.
Why not?
Because once it's put in, it can't be removed.
Can't pull, but you keep from giving.
Yeah. Well, they better not give another nickel.
Before we adjourn, unless there's another problem.
I have a question, and this is totally off of, because we're probably all affected with it. Then how affected are the insurance companies and expenditures on these scams? And I'll give it again very briefly. I got a telephone call the other day, which really sounded very legitimate, where they said that they were going to issue plastic cards, Medicare cards, because of whatever. So
That's scary.
and she gave me, she gave me my name, she gave me my address, my date of birth, and then she kept saying, is that correct? And I kept saying yes. And then she said, the next thing for us to finalize the thing is you have to give me the number on your card. I said, no ma'am, I'm not doing that. She said, why not? I said, because this is a scam. And I hung up. So it sounded so legitimate that I'm sure some people, so as a result, if I had given my number, obviously there'd have been a lot of claims on my Medicare.
Yeah.
Could be on Medicare, not on the carrier side. I'll tell you, Medicare is laden with fraud. I mean, that's one of their biggest problems and all of that. But they've done a lot to clean that up. But there'd be no way for them to get into your claims account, okay? And there's so many checks and balances, and that's the beauty of the self-funded plan, okay? All right, so for a claim to get paid in this plan, okay, it's got to come from a provider to Blue Cross, then be verified, then discounted, then sent to us, and before we approve the check for it, you'll see wacky stuff.
So why do they waste that time?
Well, we have had one retiree whose identity was stolen, and they did file claims in offices that were not hers. We got it straightened out, but she got her EOB and she noticed it.
But it's much better to be on a self-funded basis and catch that stuff than it would be fully insured.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know. It's like no way you're getting a number. You know, but she's got a private
It's
supplement.
619-759.
Wait, let me write
My mom calls
Oh,
me.
yeah, I did. Because when they asked me, I said,
Yeah.
My mom's 87 and she calls me twice a week to tell me, I got another one of those calls telling me that they kidnapped Stephen and want some money. Stephen is my son who is her private job. It's all over the place.
Before we adjourn, what's a good date, Mr. Fontaine, for you and everyone here in June? Last year, you decided you wanted a meeting not at the end of school, but in June. So, Mona, availability for you and Mr. Fontaine in June for our quarterly meeting?
We're going out to therapy. On vacation. I'll be at 4-H.
Oh, yeah, that's it on.
We wanted it after school was out, but not at the end of June.
Okay. The only thing I'm tied up with is teacher leader, which is late in the month.
Okay, Mr. Fontaine,
Y'all
what
pick some.
Tuesday night is good for you?
Yes, ma'am.
Which one?
Don't pick it.
June the 4th or 11th? What's your preference?
Let's do the 11th because I might be able to give you May data by the 11th.
Okay, so
good.
June 11th. Is that okay with everybody?
Yep.
I'm out.
You're out.
So there are two who can. What about June the 4th? Okay, let's do June the 4th, and Lynn, we'll cross our fingers and maybe you'll have miraculous May data.
I will not have to tell you right now.
It's too
They
early.
won't have it to
Well,
me.
let me ask you a question. Would it be difficult for you to email that to us?
5:30.
So what we'll do from here on out is I'll get you an electronic copy at least a few days before.
That's great. That would help everybody. That's terrific.
I need that motion.
I have it right here for you, and I have motion passed.
Thank you.
Good.
Any other comments? There was an employee who called me who is very unhappy with our insurance. He thinks he's paying way too much for health insurance here. His name is Chris. I don't know if he's here. There you are, Chris, before we adjourn.
mean, I need more information, but I've been told several times by several board members and several other people that this insurance is phenomenal, and it's not. This is the worst premium I've ever paid in my adult life, period. And so I want to be here. I want to learn, and I want to figure out how we can fix it, because I've never paid so much money for so little coverage in my entire adult life.
Are you in a family plan?
Yes.
Where were you before coming
I've
here?
been several places. I've been at Halliburton, I've been at UPS, I've been at KLFY, I've worked for the state. I mean, I've never.
You worked for the state and you got better coverage than this?
Yes. My family plan coverage, I was paying $260 a month out of pocket.
Was it an HMO?
No. It was a PPO.
Well, Chris and I had a long conversation. I appreciate you sitting through all this meeting.
Yeah.
But I would ask Mr. Fontaine, because I had told him in advance that you were going to be here, if you could spend a few minutes with Chris and answer whatever questions that you can possibly answer, and get him whatever information you can get him. And you have my number to call.
Yes, ma'am.
And since you both work for the school board, are you getting that?
Yes, we are getting the discount
The
for
discount.
and it's still, I mean, way above, so.
I just want to make sure you got it.
He's got some significant health issues in his family that are very expensive.
Yeah, I mean, all three of my children have heart defects, and we have to take them to a cardiologist once a year. And the EKG and ultrasound, I mean, that's, I think last time we walked out, it was like $3,500 that we ended up having to pay. Sure. I mean, it's ridiculous. And I understand not everything's going to be covered. Like, I get that. But for $400 some odd a month that we're paying to cover the family, I feel like there should be better coverage somewhere.
Chris, have you shopped the places where they do these things? Because I can tell you, I had a friend of mine who needed an MRI. An MRI in Lafayette was like $1,500 for that little thing he had to get done. He went over to Opelousas General has an imaging service, and it was like $800.
We try to shop when possible, but currently, to my knowledge, there are 3 pediatric cardiologists in Lafayette. The next closest one is all the way down in New Orleans.
Oh goodness!
And so we're kind of they're all pretty similar. We've visited 2 out of the 3.
Okay.
And the cost is still pretty similar. And it's because they know they have the market corner.
Right.
Yes.
So I mean,
sorry to hear that.
I may sit here and find the information to find out that there's not a better alternative, but I want to try, because I mean it helps everybody as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely, and we appreciate you spending all this time. We really do. We don't have many people who come. But Mr. Fontaine is the man who, and Mona, but Mr. Fontaine should have whatever information. And I called him after, or emailed him after you and I spoke, and asked him to be prepared to address all of your questions tonight. Okay.
Which plan are you on, Chris?
I'm on the basic.
Okay, with that, no more questions?
I move. Yeah, I second.
Any motion? Thank you, everybody. Hopefully, no more meetings till June.
You are welcome to come to budget meeting if y'all want to.
This is the budget meeting. If anybody has a burning